Mobile hunters, if you're interested in upping your mobile game, then head to tetherednation.com and check out their saddle gear. There are a few things that you can buy that will actually help you become a better deer hunter or give you the freedom to hunt any tree or any situation. This reason is why I started saddle hunting in the first place and why I use Tethered's gear. I can honestly say that Tethered's saddle gear has changed how I hunt for the better. Big tree, little tree, from the ground, it doesn't matter. I'm untethered by my gear to hunt the best setup for the situation instead of hunting for a tree that my gear can use. My current core setup consists of the Phantom saddle, tethered one sticks, and the Predator platform, and along with an assortment of their accessories. So if you want to up your mobile game, head over to tetherednation.com. If you're like me, you spend a lot of time poring over maps, looking at weather data, all in an effort to help predict when and where my best times are to hunt. It'd be nice if there was a reliable source with all this information in one place. Enter the Spartan Forge app. Unlike some other predictive apps on the market, Spartan Forge was created from military combat intelligence experience tailored for hunters and stands at the nexus of machine learning and whitetail deer hunting. No more man-made algorithms. This is a predictive model based on real GPS collared deer data, historical and predictive weather, and the next level of mapping imagery, all at my fingertips. I've had an opportunity to use the desktop version of Spartan Forge last year and recently the beta version of the iOS app, and it has replaced all of my other mapping tools. Visit SpartanForge.ai and sign up today to get your place in line as the fully available mobile app is coming soon. This podcast is brought to you by Skull Brew Coffee Company. Skull Brew Coffee roasts premium single origin coffee, guaranteeing to deliver the freshest coffee directly to your doorstep. The kicker? They're 2% for conservation certified and donate 10% of their proceeds back to organizations who support the interests of our hunting community. So go to skullbrewcoffee.com and pick up one of their 3-killer roasts and fuel your hunt and fill more tags with Skull Brew Coffee. Welcome to the Truths from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast, brought to you by Skull Brew Coffee Company. I'm your host, Clint Campbell, and you're listening to episode number 255. Today, we're rolling into another listener Q&A session with my good buddy, Greg Litzinger, so stay tuned. All right. What is up, everyone? Happy Wednesday to you. Hope you are doing well. Hope you are feeling fine as we're rolling into another week in November here. Actually, as you're listening to this, I'm actually recording this all in advance as a good podcast host to try to make sure that you guys have an episode while I am in Kansas hunting. So while you're listening to this, I'm probably up at 0 dark 30. Yeah, that's a word. 0 dark 30. Freezing my cojones off somewhere in Kansas chasing whitetails. But certainly wanted to make sure that you guys had a podcast this week, and I'm probably going to put out a couple. You might have even heard a few prior to this from Kansas. The goal will be to try to get a couple out while we're in Kansas for a couple weeks to keep you guys apprised as to what is going on. But have a cool session for you guys today. Won't belabor this up front. We'll just kind of get right to it. Do have a couple things to pass along to you guys, though. My buddy Cameron over at Hunting Gear Deals, he's got some things going on as we head into the holiday season. Hunting Gear Deals is really just, what he does is try to help the hunting community find the best deals possible on hunting gear from across the web. So each day, essentially, he goes through the entire website, all the websites. That might be an exaggeration, but what he does do is scour the entire web for deals, sales, coupons related to hunting gear to help you save money and time on finding your next purchase. The best way to make sure to never miss a deal is to subscribe to Hunting Gear Deals daily email list. So each day, the most recent deals, he'll email those out to everyone that's on this email list. That way you're not having to kind of go through and check to find things, and you hit the website and everything will be there. There'll be links there driving you to the website to take advantage of those deals. Surprisingly enough, though, Hunting Gear Deals doesn't actually sell the gear you find on huntinggeardeals.com. They just simply provide you the link where the best deals can be found, and they do not exclude any brands or play favorites. So if they find a deal, they're going to pass it along. They just simply want to help you stretch your hunting gear budget each and every season. So if saving money and getting great deals wasn't quite enough, Hunting Gear Deals is your number one resource during Black Friday and Cyber Monday for hunting-related deals across the web. During these special sales events, Hunting Gear Deals compiles a huge list of hunting-related content or hunting-related deals all in one place. You can go to the website, huntinggeardeals.com, and go to I believe it's the sales tab, if I'm not mistaken. or it might even be holiday tab. You have to go check it out. But there you will find all the information related to Black Friday, Cyber Monday, all the deals that are going on for that. So if you're a fan, or if you're a gear nerd or a fanatic like me, then be sure to check out the extensive collection of unbiased and honest gear reviews submitted by hunters from across the country, just like you. If you're interested in doing gear reviews, send an email over to Cameron at CamronCamron.huntinggeardeals@gmail.com for more information on how you can be part of the team and provide your own gear review. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get jumped into today's podcast. I have my good buddy Greg Litzinger on. This is the marathon session from this summer, the final episode of the listener Q&A. It only took us, we did that in August. So, September, October, part of August. It only took us like 2.5 months to get through all the episodes launched, but we did it before the new year so we can hang our hat on that. So with that, we're going to go ahead and jump into today's podcast. Hope you guys dig it. Hope you guys are having a great rut. Hope you guys are filling tags. If not, hope you're at least having some fun and seeing some action. We will be back in studio, aka my house, my home office, doing podcasts as usual here in the next few weeks. And so until next time, I want to thank you all for listening. This one I think we've already covered because it's more about scrapes. We've covered that pretty thoroughly. This one is, you're better suited to answer this one. How close are you setting up on a buck bed? Like this person's just curious. In the morning? Either way.
In the morning.
I know you like mornings more than anything.
Yeah, mornings in the mountains, and I'm setting up so I can shoot into the bed. 30 yards, 20 yards.
You're literally setting up that close.
Yeah.
Wow. That's some cojones.
And it works.
Yeah. I mean,
it doesn't work every time, but when it does work, it's like, bingo. And I have more success doing that than failures doing that.
Really?
Yeah. So take that with a grain of salt, everybody. That's just something that works for me.
How do you know when they're going to use the bed, though? Because they could be bedding in any one of those beds.
It's just, you go to the mountains. I'm there for 4 days. I'm hunting 4 different beds. And the wind, it's all wind-based. Moon-based is good. If I'm getting that aggressive on beds, the moon needs to be perfect.
So talk to me about the moon, because that's actually someone had a question in here.
Yeah,
Says
the
moon
overhead
phases, yes or no?
Yeah, the overhead underfoot needs to be within, like an hour of first light, last light. But for me, it'd be first light in the morning. And I'm beating the deer there, and usually, be a ridge, say, to be 2 beds in that point. One, hunt one bed, hunt the next, next day. And, it's all in because I'm driving 3 hours, hiking, 45 minutes to an hour in. Like, I got to get super aggressive, or I'm like, hey, look, there's a big buck walking away over there.
Right.
Thanks.
So just so people out there listening kind of get it, like, so when you say overhead underfoot, what do you mean by that?
The moon, I guess, the moon's directly overhead or directly underfoot, on the other side of the earth, I guess.
Got it.
It needs to be within an hour plus or minus of first light for that day, particular day.
Okay.
Get super aggressive. You can say 2 hours.
Right.
But all my mountain bucks that I've shot directly, coming into bed or over bed, has been on an overhead or underfoot with an hour and a half.
So overhead means that they have more light in the sky from the moon, hence they are getting back to the bed later, giving you an opportunity to slip in before them in the morning. If it's underfoot,
it's the same thing.
They're leaving the bed later.
Yeah.
Right? They'd be leaving the bed later.
Yeah. So
because it's getting dark.
Yeah, I've killed bucks, underfoot, overhead. Overhead's a little bit better on buck sightings, but I think you can kill in either. I've killed in either one.
Yeah.
But it's just, for me, driving that far, and that just comes with, hours upon hours. I don't spend that much time in the mountains anymore. I would literally spend hours. I'd drive up there for 4 straight weeks, weekends in a row, and just sun up, sundown, burn, sleep in my truck till the next day, and just boot leather. Just know that was like the back of my hand. Right. And that was before, all this stuff come into play.
Maps,
I had a compass and a topo map, and then I got a crappy ass E-Trex, green screen E-Trex, just so I could literally get to the spot. And then, once all of these things are to come out, you can understand it a little bit better more. Like,
Right.
oh, you can kind of you have all that stuff on to your fingertips.
Yeah.
But in the evening, closest I've set up and almost killed was maybe 60 yards.
Yeah.
And that was like really pushing it. You know what I mean? That's like getting super like, and that was like not a good moon day or anything. That was like, I got a night to hunt.
Right, because
and I know he's in the area. It's like, I'm going, and it's like the best bed, you know, it's like, there's a couple other ones. This is the best bedding, the mature buck. He's going to get this type of bedding. So I'm going all in.
Right.
And he got up and I just ran out of daylight, you know?
Yeah. And there's one bed for sure I know that I'm hunting this year that we found on that piece where it's going to be a morning hunt, easy access in.
And it's with the morning, it's a lot of people like even.
Are you waiting for weather too, or is the moon more important?
All three are super important. You know, time of year, weather, moon. Like if you get all three, it's. I mean,
This is an October hunt?
Yeah. October 20th range. You know,
okay,
18th, 19th, 20th, 21st. You know, that's before they start
moving.
Yeah. They're still coming back to their October beds. You know, I guess.
But they are spending more time moving. You know what I mean? Like because they ramp up their movement time, basically starting in August.
Yeah, and hunting the mountains over the beds only a handful of times. You know, I count on one hand. A buck beat me to that bed. They went there before dark. You know, before light, in the dark. You get it in the salt marsh, reeds, and swamp a lot more than you do in the mountains. I don't, probably because they guards down a little bit more in the mountains. Like I don't know why. I don't think their guard be down a little bit more, but just
or
just
something.
Just the way it works out. But even here in the big woods, the cameras I run near bedding areas, 6:45, 7 o'clock, 7:15, like these bucks are cruising in. Like that's, you know, it's their primary bed. Like they're safe coming in almost any time of the day. Like I'll come in at 7:30. I know this bed has never caused me a problem. Do. You know, they can take their time getting in and feed their way in. Satellite bed, something that's not their primary bed. I think they'll be a little more cautious coming in. Always J-hook downwind. I mean, I've killed buck coming into a bed, not even coming downwind. He's just coming into his bed like daylight. Like, I need to get in this bed before I get killed. So he came in.
Got killed.
Yeah, basically, yeah. You know, he came in and was like, all right, but not downwind, not nothing. That's when you know, like, you're in his bed. Like, that's his numero uno bed.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of scouting and a little bit of luck.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to hunting that one particular bed this year because I don't have a lot of beds to hunt necessarily. In this one, you know, it was clear though. It's buck bed, solo, rub in it, you know, and so rubs coming out of it that we found close to a scrape, you know. So that's probably interesting when you talk about the time frame. Like that would be about the time frame that would make sense. Would be what you're talking about because I don't know that he's laying there all October. I'm going to make a guess and say he's probably moving to that once the scrape starts to work because he wants to know what's happening in that area. You know, would be my guess. So, all right. So this one's actually from our buddy Tim Bunau.
Oh, Tim.
Son of a. Well, he's going to do us dirty here too. You ready? He says, both of you recently had botched shots. Thanks, Tim. On a good buck. He said, so did I. To try to lessen the pain a little bit. Like, you know, don't try to butter us up now with your woe is me stories, Tim. What helped get over it?
Just shit goes offline.
Yeah.
Let it go.
Yeah.
You can't dwell on the past. It sucks. I hate losing deer. Like I'll be in a little depressive state for 24 or 36 hours. Mm-hmm. And you pretty much just got to get back on the horse, man.
Yeah.
You know, dwelling on what you could have done to something that is already passed and you've gone through every roller coaster emotion is pointless. Yep. It's wasted energy and emotion. Because now you're just going to be thinking about like, I should have did this. I should have did a lot of things. You know, I should have went to college. I should have been a deer biologist. And there's just so many should have, would have, could have.
Right.
You know, but for me, like this year, I bounced back. You know, from hitting that one and losing it to a few days later, like killing. And I think I talked about this in another podcast. Somebody was asking, how did you just bounce back. And I was like, well, years of shooting, competing, like dwelling on, shooting a 5 isn't going to help you win the tournament. That arrow is long gone. Like, it's in the past, never to see again. Like the Lion King, who bops him on the head, It's
Right.
like,
Yeah.
it's the same mentality. Like, you can't let it bother you. You mess up in life. You dwell on it, you move on.
Yeah.
And that's hard for a lot of people because you're dealing with the life of an animal. It's not like I miss my 3D target or I don't get a podium. The actions are still the same, but the emotions are a little bit different. But that deer, it sucks to say, will not go to waste. That deer will be completely consumed by everything in the woods.
Yep.
Nothing in nature goes to waste.
Yep.
That deer, it sucks. He's going to die painful. I mean, it's awful. I hate that. That's why I shoot so much. That's why I train and do all that stuff. But other animals will feed on that deer, and it sounds shallow saying that, but nothing goes to waste.
Yeah.
So you can dwell on it, like, all right, I didn't find him. I'm going to beat myself up for, 5 days of the rest of my season. Shit happens, man.
Yeah. I mean, the reality is he didn't suffer any less than he would have if coyotes caught him at some point and ate him alive.
Yes.
That's the reality of it.
Let's get back on the horse. I know when I shot my buck, the mindset, as soon as I see him, I grabbed the bow. I was like, you're fucking dead.
Yeah.
I don't care where you go. I'm killing you. You go 40 yards that way. If I can squeeze an arrow through a 3-inch opening, that arrow is going through that 3-inch opening. That's like,
Right.
This is how this works, So you might as well just sit still and get some,
Just sit still and take your medicine. For me, I think, I was bummed out. Of course, I think same thing. You're bummed about it. I think the way you bounce back from it is that you did everything that you could, from preparation before the season. You're shooting, and like, I didn't leave any stone unturned. Like, my shot was good. In my instance, my shot was good. I clipped a branch that I couldn't see until we watched the film back. Yeah. And the branch was so small with the shadows and stuff like that. I could have shot that shot 100 times. I would have never saw it probably,
And you would have missed it 99%.
99% of the time, I probably wouldn't even hit the branch. You know what I mean? When I say a branch, I'm overstating. It was a freaking twig sticking off the side of the tree. And if you do this long enough, it happens. If it hasn't happened to you, then you haven't been doing it long enough. Is the other thing. So, and the other part of it too is I have really good hunting buddies. I think a lot of people, it bothers them more than it should because they feel like social media suggests that it should bother you more.
Yeah.
Right. I think part of it is that when I'm hunting, I try to think about myself, and I don't want people to take this the wrong way. I try to think of myself whenever I'm out there, like in terms of a predator. Like, my job is to kill. Like, no different than a coyote or a mountain lion or whatever. My A1 number job when I'm out there is like, I'm trying to have a great experience. There's like some of those intrinsic things that you're trying to experience as a human, but like, I'm there to kill, and I'm a predator, and a predator doesn't worry about if he gets it or it misses. It just goes on to the next target, and so when you're in their world, I try to just think about it in the sense of me being fully in their world, not just partially in their world. And so I just try to adopt the mindset of, I'm going to kill, and if it happens, awesome, it happens. If I miss or something bad happens, I move on to the next target. Doesn't mean I don't like it. Doesn't mean that I'm not disappointed or
if you're flanking
depressed
deer
about it.
Numerous times a year in, year out. All right, that's a different story.
That's a problem.
Yeah. I mean, that buck, I think that's probably the first deer or first buck I lost in maybe 10 years or so. I forget how long, but probably looking back, it's probably like 10 years. Like, that's a long stretch not to lose a buck.
Yeah. And knock on wood, that was the first for me.
And I've lost, I think, 2 does in that time frame. And losing a doe or buck, it don't matter to me.
Doesn't matter. No.
It sucks either way. I'm out there at 2 o'clock in the morning, missing work the next day, and that's just the way it goes.
Yeah, you exhaust all possibilities. Like, you do all the shooting you can do. Whenever the bad shot happens or whatever, it's like you spend the time to look and you overturn. Like, in my case, it's like I went and got I went and got private landowners to give me permission to walk on their property to look for this deer, and we went everywhere that deer could have possibly went. I had squat for blood to start with. It just came up snake eyes, you know what I mean?
So Tim, so get back on the horse and start killing some shit in Montana.
Yeah, stop belly aching.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll be out to see you soon, buddy.
Tim, it's been 3 years. I thought you said anybody can kill an elk in 3 years.
Right. I got to send you a picture of the giant whitetail that my buddy sent me from Montana. Just FYI.
Yeah.
So just know that it's coming. All right. On to the next question here. I think we're getting down to the nitty gritty here. This person writes e-scouting approach specifically for mature bucks. So is there anything you're looking for when you're e-scouting that would be specific to mature bucks?
For me, it's, we talked about this numerous times, is edge, terrain. Like I love hunting terrain. Terrain doesn't change. Like a deep cut is always going to be a deep cut. You're going to have consistent deer movement at a certain time of the year. Food changes, so me trying to find food e-scouting is difficult, without actually being there and scouting. So for me, I look for terrain features and or topographical features, whatever you want to call it, and edge cover.
Yeah. Same. I would say for bucks, I'm probably more paying attention to terrain first. Yeah. It depends on where I'm hunting. Yeah. Like if I'm in hill country, or mountains or whatever, I'm looking at terrain first. If it's not as much elevation change, I'm probably now starting to look more for edge and cover and things of that nature. So as a follow-up to that, what is your favorite terrain feature?
What time of the year?
You always ask me this. What time of the year?
Well,
you pick.
When I'm in the mountains, I like deep cuts.
Yeah.
And when I say deep cut, I mean like impassable deep cut. Deer, rock slides, a giant blowout from, a storm, rain or whatever. The deer are physically, you can't get across it. Like they
forces them to go to the head of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is a great place to start scouting. It's a lot of them are, they're hard to find sometimes because you look on a map like, that might be a deep cut. And you go there and you're like, that's not a deep cut. No. On the map, it looks like one.
Ditch.
Yeah, basically. On the map, it looks like one, but if they can pass it, to me, it's not a deep cut. For me, a deep cut it's impassable from bottom to the top. Yeah. And they are literally forced to go up and around. I love finding them. They're not everywhere. They're very difficult to find, unless you do a lot of walking, I guess. Can't really see it on the map, You might see some boulders and some of the Google, but they're, a lot of times the foliage and vegetation's so much, so extensive you can't really see what's making that deep cut.
Right. Yeah, I think for me, and this used to not be the case until recently, probably in the past 2 years, has been probably benches more than anything. I've just started seeing more and more that the majority of the mature buck kind of movement on camera, because I've even started placing cameras on them and stuff like that more. So tops I'll use, and we're talking about hill country or mountains here. Tops I'll use to get intel because there's usually a lot of scrapes up there, and I can get nighttime intel of who's in the neighborhood. Typically, my daylight pictures are going to be on benches, and those benches may literally be old logging trails. You know what I mean? I'm just looking for something wide enough, three quarters of the way down the mountain or down the ridge, that provides them an easy access to kind of to move. That's what I'm looking for. And it follows the same rule of thumb that Dan's always talked about too, with that 3/4 of the way up. It doesn't always have to be exactly 3/4. It's like, where is that thermal advantage taking place, right? And if you have a bench that's there, like that's money, around a ridge and an elevation line that kind of goes around.
One thing I avoid, like the plague, now that I've gotten older, is saddles.
Oh, I was just going to say the same thing.
When I first got in hunting the mountains,
same thing,
15, 20 years ago, saddles. That's all you read about. Find the saddles. And wherever you find saddles, I find human presence now.
100%.
It don't matter where.
It's the most obvious terrain feature to see on a map. Everyone can see the U.
Yeah, and it's like, fuck, man. It's like so many spots too. I scouted in Kentucky. It's like, I'm back there. I'm like, man, this would be great. You get the saddle and you're like,
Now, the one time I will still use a saddle is if the saddle is connecting a couple terrain features together, right? Like if there's, like if there's a saddle, it's connecting two benches, like two ridge systems together. It's like, well, then okay, because that others might be able to see it. I get it, but I'm still going to go at least check that out because it's connecting multiple things together. That's going to allow a buck to move from one ridge system to the next ridge system and kind of stay on that same elevation line that they want to stay on. So that's the one time that I will still kind of use it. But for me, it's benches and anything, especially benches that start to tie things together.
And I don't know if it's a special term. Everybody thinks a point. It's a arrow kind of coming down. Mm-hmm. Points that are shaped with almost like a square. Mm-hmm. I love those because you have two bedding opportunities for a shifting wind. I always find good buck sign going up one or down one, and they don't necessarily have to be super wide, only 50 yards wide, but them small square shaped points. I guess it's almost like a double point. There's probably a
term for it somewhere. Yeah, a spur ridge or something. I don't know if that's even the case. But I may have just made that up. I don't know. I probably heard someone say it somewhere at some point. Let's see here. We got bow and arrows set up. What are you rocking?
Carbon Icon, Day 6. Arrows. I got a cheap sight I've had forever. Hamsky Rest, Radical Archery Designs 4-blade and or titanium 3-blade. And that's pretty much it.
All right. I'm rocking Matthews VXR 28, Day 6 arrows, 350 spine, I believe. Rocking this year Afflictor K2 fixed blade broadheads. HHA sight, which I've really liked, the single pin. I think it's called the Kingpin. I'm not sure. I think that's the one it is. And then a QAD Matthews drop away. Integrated rest. Yeah. And then a Carter Just Because thumb release. And I think a tight spot 3-arrow quiver. And that is my rig. I think 125s is the K2 fixed blade Afflictor broadhead. So
those things are pretty stout looking.
Yeah, they're gnarly, man. I've been shooting them. I just recently started shooting them, and they're accurate. I shot them out to 40 plus yards yesterday, and was dropping them, dropping dimes. So I'm pretty stoked to use those this year. Mobile saddle tips. Do it.
Do it. You want to.
I don't know. I'll put it this way. I mean, I'll just cover like the questions I get most often is usually around shooting out of the saddle. Is usually the main one. And for me, it comes down to two things. Got to trust it.
Yep.
Once you use it, there's a ton of good saddle companies out there. Everyone that listens to this knows that I use, tethered saddles. You just, whatever saddle you're using, you just have to trust it, or else you're not going to use it effectively. And when you're shooting out of it, you just got to make sure that you load the weight. At least for me, the way I shoot out of it. Now, Taylor Chamberlain's a little bit different. He and I talked about it in a recent podcast or a previous podcast. He shoots sitting because he can pivot around everywhere and move very, very little. Yep. And then he'll use the tree almost as a brace to a degree with his knee, and that's how he's shooting around it. But he's usually always in a seated position. I'm the opposite. I always am standing to shoot, and I will use a knee off the tree every now and then. But the most important,
Colin Kaepernick.
No, hell no. F that guy.
I call this the Kaepernick.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop doing that now. It's awful. The biggest thing for me that when I got it, like I've shot out of it 2 times out of my yard, and then the first year I hunted out of a saddle, and I went and killed a deer the next day out of it, or the next hunt, whatever, 2 days later, whatever it was. First hunt out of the saddle. The biggest thing for me was, because I stand to shoot, was making sure that my saddle was loaded and I wasn't trying to stand on it like a tree stand and using my legs necessarily. That I wanted all my weight in my saddle, and I'm just basically using my legs as like a fulcrum, as like a pivot point.
Fulcrum.
Yeah, to move around. Maybe it's not a fulcrum, it's probably a pivot point. But for me, it's like if you do those things, like you'll be good. And then just make sure you're getting a saddle that fits you well, so you're not getting hip pinch and all the comfort things. Making like everyone's tether height is a little bit different based on their height or how long their torso is or whatever. It's like get your tether height correct, and then you're probably going to be pretty comfortable. And then get your bridge length correct.
The tips for me would be to spend a lot of time in it, like before the season comes around.
Yeah.
Try different things, and everything feels good for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Sit in that motherfucker for an hour.
Yeah.
And don't change anything. Just sit and keep tabs of how long your tether is, where it's at, how much, what do you have, and spend an hour and try not to move like you're hunting, or even a half hour. You don't have time constraints. Spend a half hour sitting in that thing, and the next time you do it, change something. Change your bridge length if you have that capability. See if that increases your comfort. Change your tether height. See if that, from where I got mine pretty much mid-season, a couple years ago, and it was like, it cost me like three does, no bucks, because I was still trying to figure out what I needed to do.
Yeah.
And once I figure out my comfort level, it's like, this is good, I'm good,
Yeah.
And that's pretty much transferred from tethered now to latitude. Is not much has really changed, tether-wise and bridge-wise.
Right.
It's like I know where I need to be, and the two-panel gives me a little bit more flexibility in some of the hot spots I would get, because I don't really have ass or hips.
Right.
So it's like it's a comfort thing that takes time. So the first 3 or 4 sits, or even first half dozen sits, might be awful.
Yeah.
You need to start making some adjustments, because you will find the comfort, which could be way off. I mean, my buddy, I let him use my saddle. He has his tether up so fucking high. And I'm like, but he's like, it's comfy for me. I'm like, all right, cool. Because I look at him like, what the fuck is that? I mean, it's so high. And like, you fall, you can like wrap around the tree like twice and still stand on the platform. But that's where he says he feels comfortable.
Yeah.
And like, he leans all the way back. I mean, he's like, I'm like, he goes, this is comfy to me. I'm like, that just hurts my spine looking at it.
Yeah.
But I watched him sit motionless, for 30 minutes in my backyard here, just hanging out. I'm like, I don't even sit motionless for 30 minutes. And the dude's like, I'm about ready to take a nap. I'm like, I'm about ready to go like stretch because my back hurts looking at how you're sitting.
Yeah. I mean, there's a ton of good, saddle, options out there now, way more than there was just a handful of years ago. And so there's no shortage of finding different things that might work for you. So I would say try a bunch. To me, saddles are kind of like bows.
Yep.
Like, there's a bunch of really good options. Yep. You just need to go try them and see what they're like. And Tether does a teach and train. If you've not been to one of those, and it's not just tethered saddles either. It's like they encourage people to bring theirs. And so there's usually a bunch of stuff there for you to check out, and that's the best thing. Like find a buddy that has one, check it out. But as far as tips go, like to your point, like you need to spend a little time with it. And it's not any different, like as far as like your process of getting up and hunting isn't really any different than doing it out of a tree stand. The process is just different. If you're a tree stand hunter currently and you're thinking about getting into a saddle and you're looking at it going like, man, there's all these ropes and all this stuff. It's like, it's not really any different. Like you still have a lineman's belt that you're going to use. You still have some type of tether you're going to use, a tree strap you're going to use. You're still got some type of harness that you're going to use, and you still have to hang your stand. And so how you get up the tree, you can use a lot of the same process. You just need to kind of now figure out like, okay, where do I pack stuff in my pouch so I can get it out one thing at a time? And you do the same thing with a tree stand because you're trying to get in as quiet and as smooth as you possibly can. And
guys that are strictly climber guys to saddles, the couple guys I've talked to, their learning curve was a little bit longer because they're not used to using sticks and stuff like that to get up.
Yeah.
But if you use hang-ons, if you've used hang-ons for years, you're pretty much going to be using the same sticks you're using as a hang-on.
Yep.
You're going to set your platform pretty much how you set your hang-on. You're going to climb in and attach your tether like you would your
tree strap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you're going to just like lean back. And leaning back, for me, I used the hip, just the hip belt. I never used a full body harness.
Yeah.
So for years, all I had was a tree hopper lineman's, which turned into my safety belt.
Right.
Because it allowed me to lean on to take shots behind the tree and stuff like that. Like,
Yep.
so if my transition into being comfortable facing tree and shooting, I've shot a lot of deer leaning on my harness, shooting around the tree.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think just check it out, do it. There's a ton of information online now to learn more about it and stuff like that.
Everybody knows somebody that has a saddle.
At this point, yeah. If you don't, then go to a tethered teach and train jammer. And if you can't get to one of those, then good luck. No, I'm just kidding. All right, this fella here, deciphering big buck sign versus small buck sign. That's something we've talked about a lot on this podcast. I think
big rubs don't necessarily equal,
but big tracks do.
But big buck sign, but tall rubs, tine marks up high equals a wide buck.
Yep.
You can have a tree that's 18 inches around and there's only damage, 20 inches off the ground. Mm-hmm. That could be a small buck.
Yep.
Who's just really angry.
Yep.
Now, if that same tree has tine marks up to your, nipples, your chest, or your stomach, it's like, okay, that deer's got some width and or long tines or a combination of both. Yeah.
The other thing is too, is like you were showing me when we were scouting this year together, there was a bunch of tick marks on trees through the timber.
Walking through,
and it was like, a small deer is going to make those tick marks. His rack is going to be hitting all these trees as he's walking through.
And what Clint's talking about is deer's going through some brush and there's saplings and 3, 4, or 5, even 10-year-old growth. He gets caught up in all this stuff. He's going to start shaking his head left to right, and when he does, he's going to be hitting trees with his tines.
Yep.
And there's going to be little tick marks about chest high. As he's coming trying to rip all the stuff off his head. Mm-hmm. And you find those stuff.
Typically it's a wider deer that's doing that's not some super tight little buck that's making that, right? So it's just another good
and big tracks equal a big body deer. I mean, you seen Tony's deer today.
Yeah,
thing dressed out at 200 plus pounds.
Yeah,
that's a big deer.
Be. I mean, you can be fooled by big doe tracks too. You know what I mean? So it's like you kind of have to take everything.
And look for rounded tracks.
Yeah,
and tracks will never fail you. A big set, 4-finger, hand-sized print track. That's a big deer. I don't care what part of the country you're in.
Yeah,
that's a big deer.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
And then trying to think if there's anything else as far as sign goes. Big buck sign like scrapes or whatever. Those are
That's hard.
Yeah,
tall licking branches.
Tall licking branches.
That requires a deer to stand on his hind legs and have a longer set of tines to pull that thing down. Mm-hmm. And me and Johnny found one this year. I mean, I think I got a picture of it on Instagram. I'm holding a stick and I'm touching this licking branch. The stick's 20 inches or so. Mm-hmm. So this thing's probably 7-8 feet tall. And John and I, we got talking about it. We think it's this big 8 or it's a big 10 or a big 8 or whatever, really tall tine. It's his scrape and it's his scrape only. He doesn't want anybody else touching that licking branch. So he can stand on his hind legs, get it caught in his tines, pull it down, do whatever he needs to do, and let it go. And to me, it makes sense. Never really thought about it until we started talking about it. I'm like, this makes total sense. Like,
and we saw that tall one this year when we were scouting.
That's a deer. I would think a deer possibly saying, this is my area. This is my home range. Just don't touch my fucking stuff.
And before my camera got stolen, I had one deer hit that licking branch, stood up on his back legs, hit it.
Yep.
And I couldn't, it was so early in the season.
Yeah.
And it was foggy that morning, so I couldn't tell whether it had bone or not at that point. But
tall.
It was a big deer, whatever it was.
Like tall, high. I don't say tall, but the licking branch that's high, 6 feet tall. That's, to me, is going to be a possibly a taller, older deer with tines. You got to do that.
Yeah. So, all right, man. Well, I think that's it, dude. We did like the marathon session. This whole QA session took us damn near 4 hours to do.
Oof.
In 2 different kind of pockets. This will end up being like a marathon, multiple episode session. I have a feeling. But thanks for coming on, brother.
Yeah, man.
Tell people where they can find out more about the bow hunting fiend, where they can get your content and follow along with what you got going on.
Instagram, YouTube, same. Bow hunting fiend. Not much changed.
check out his tube, give him some love, and
check out my tube. Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa, settle down.
We're
going to
do that later.
Yeah.
Before we get weird, we're getting out of here. All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's show. I'd like to thank all of you for listening. And if you haven't yet, please head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating. And hell, while you're at it, head over to YouTube and give us a sub there too. I'd be super appreciative if you'd be able to do those two things for me. And before I shut this thing down, I need to give a big shout out to our partners who continue to help us make this podcast possible. Tethered, Exodus Outdoor Gear, Skull Brew Coffee Company, and Maven Optics. And until next time, we'll see y'all.